Strategy in a world of tactics. I don't know what you're expecting when you saw this particular topic, but I think it's a little bit catchy. What is strategy? What is tactics in this world? What do we mean by we live in a world of tactics? And what are we going to talk about? Okay. So once again, I'm advertising this book, Who Do I Marry? And if you are interested in it after or in the course of this event, you can come to me. The course is 350. So much in it. It takes the lessons from the life of Rebecca and Isaac to break things down to us. And also a lot of examples, so many stories in it, very interesting ones, funny ones, but they are all teaching valuable lessons in relationships. Okay, so quickly. First of all, I want to talk about we living in a culture where there's the paradox of civility. What do I mean by that? I mean, we live in a culture where we are always encouraged and it's demanded of us to act in a civil way, to be polite to people, to be nice to people, to be helpful to people. You get where I'm coming from? But there's a paradox there because the fact of the matter is that the way our culture promotes a sense of honor and a sense of niceness and politeness, that everything is all right, nobody should do anything wicked to that other person. It's not really so. Because behind the scenes, there are so many other things going on there. And it's a very dangerous position we find ourselves because of this culture of civility. You cannot even believe sometimes the way people behave. Because you don't expect certain things from certain people. You know, someone will do something, you tell the person, oh, I want you to do this for me. And the person will be honest, oh, don't worry, tomorrow. And you just everything, everybody is nice to each other, but behind the scenes, he's sitting somewhere talking, you think I'll come. This crazy guy thinks it's all that. But as soon as they see you, because of this culture of civility and niceness and fairness promoted, we are lured or seduced into thinking that everything is all right. Oh, this guy is not thinking about me. Oh, he will come. Oh, he will do this for me. Oh, he was thinking right about me. Okay, that's the first thing I wanted to mention before I even come to the origin of strategy. So what's the origin of strategy? What is strategy in the first place? Okay. Strategy comes from the word strategos, which means the leader of the army. It's a Latin word, strategos. So when you hear the word strategy, just the same thing that you expect from the leader of the army, that's the concept behind strategy. So what does the leader of the army do? The leader of the army plans everything, takes into account every single thing. We are going to fight a war. Okay, our enemies are coming. We have to find out to position ourselves in a particular way. Are we going to attack from the flank? Are we coming straight forward? Are we going to deceive our enemy by acting as if we are many when we are actually only few? And there's a lot of strategy in the Bible. So much. When you look at the Israelites and their wars, interesting. Look at the life of Gideon, that the directions God gave him, pure strategy. There is war that the Israelites were made to go to the city to burn, and the people ran out of the city. They came out, then someone, as the fight was going on, someone went to the city to burn, and the people started warring. Maybe our wives and children are suffering because their morale went down. They started running back, and when you are fighting someone and running, a person can easily, and that was the strategy God gave them. So it's all strategy. So the leader of the army is always thinking about how to win. And he's thinking about how to win and lose as little of his soldiers as possible, with less risk, with less losses. So he has to look at the terrain he's going to fight in. He has to understand the way the leader of the other army thinks. He has to look at all that. There's this book called The Art of War. It was written by Sun Tzu. It's an interesting book. You have to read it. Very, very, very interesting. Powerful book. And Sun Tzu, when you read a book, you see this man, in his time, he didn't belong to any particular army. So when you want your army to win a war, you go and hire him. And he cannot lose the war. Because the guy is so, when you read the book, you just open and say, wow, like, how can a person think that way? Like, he just knows everything. Say, when this happens, this is what it means. When this happens, this is what it means. When you hear it, he even goes as far as describing sounds to you. Because when you just listen to the sound of the boop, boop, if you are hearing boop, boop, that means you are losing. If you are hearing, like, that's how, when you even try to logically say, wow. He says, when you go to, you see the birds flying in this direction, and you see where I'm coming from. Strategy. You have to understand the terrain. You have to understand you have to build the morale of your people. All that's part of strategy. We cannot talk about everything concerned to strategy, but we'll look at certain things. I think I skipped some of my slides. Okay, this is what I wanted to talk about. So we cannot talk about every part of strategy, but look at some aspects of strategy I wanted to talk. We could have talked about, but we're just going to look at a self-directed war, because that's the most important part of strategy. You can look at organization warfare, where you're in an organization, maybe a leader or you occupy a very important position. What are some of the strategies you can look at? Avoiding the snare of groupthink, where as a leader, you always think, oh, okay, what's everybody thinking? It will not work. You have to be strong. If anybody has occupied that position, I don't know what I'm talking about. We could have talked about avoiding the snare of the groupthink. We could talk about transforming your war into a crusade, such that it's not just about the people, because everybody has their own interests. So you have to make sure that the people internalize your ideas, such that they are fighting for a cause, a sense of honor, that if we win this war, it will benefit, because people move purely by self-interest. You see, so you consider that one too. We are not going to talk about those things. You can also look at defensive war, because in war there's offensive, there's defensive. There's concept of losing battles but winning the war, which is very, very, very important concept. There are times that you have to lose certain battles. At the end of the day, it's the last war that matters. So maybe losing this battle could make you win the war. You understand where I'm coming from? You understand where I'm coming from? So some of us are winning battles, and because of the battles you are winning, you're going to lose the war. Because it's bigger than that. I don't know if you've watched this. Is it Game of Thrones? Yeah. There was this battle that was very strategic. I think, I don't know the characters very well, I'm not saying. But there was this battle that was strategic that they lost. And when they lost, even their enemies who won over them knew that they lost the war, but they lost it because they wanted to win something else somewhere. So they sent some of their soldiers. They sent some of their soldiers who were actually not so strong to a particular portion to lose, so that they would divert their enemies' attention and they were to take a particular place which was strategic. So after the enemies won the war, or they won the war, they know that the general picture of it is that they've lost, because they've lost the place that they actually needed to protect. That's the concept of losing battles by winning war. You can also talk about knowing your enemy, or the person you're actually dealing with, the person's psyche, how the person thinks. That's a kind of offensive kind of warfare. You can also talk about defensive warfare, where you're talking about you picking your battles carefully, because it's not everything that you have to fight. Certain fights that when you go into, they will actually, at the end of the day, cause you to battle that when you pick, you have to consider the person you're going to pick the battle with. This person is stronger than me. Why am I going to fight this person out now? I have to prepare myself before I go there. Or this particular battle, if I pick it, although I can beat them, I'm going to win, but at the end of the day, I'm going to lose. There was this concept of Pyrrhic victory. I don't know if you've heard of it before. There was a man called Pyrrhus. His army was very strong, and he was just winning wars. At the end of the day, his army wore off, as in the numbers decreased so much that he couldn't fight anymore. But Pyrrhus could have actually considered what he was doing and chosen his battles carefully, taking his time and gone on retreat. But he didn't take it because he felt he could win. He was just going. So he won all the wars that he had to win. But at the end of the day, it was a Pyrrhic victory. So whenever you hear something like a Pyrrhic victory, you're talking about a victory that you win. At the end of the day, you've lost more than you've won, because you've won the victory, but you gain nothing. And it happens a lot in our everyday lives. Maybe you wanted to, I'm going to tell you,
You just want to go and tell him your mind. After the day, you lose what you've told your mind, you've shown him your stance, you've disgraced him in front of everybody. But you've lost actually what you could have gained by being wise and actually holding back. So the principle of strategy of war and of living, they apply in every aspect of life. Job said in the book of Job chapter 7 verse 1 that life is war. And truly life is war. And to fight war, you have to have strategy. So I don't want us to talk so much about that particular aspect. I just wanted to introduce that we could have talked about so many things, but we're just limiting ourselves to the self-directed kind of warfare. So, okay, let's come here. There are 6 fundamental ideals that if you want to become a strategic warrior in life, so you come to realize that strategy is not just about war, but it's about life. Like we try to juxtapose this to that. There are 6 fundamental ideals that, as a person, you have to internalize or build on about your own self. What are they? The first thing is that you look at things as they are and not as your emotions color them. The self-directed warfare is the basic of all warfare. Because you can try to build up in terms of your organization warfare, but if your self-directed warfare is not conk, you are wasting your time. So looking at things as they are and not as your emotions color them. Let's look at this scenario. If you are afraid of something, what happens to you? If you get angry, what happens? If you become so overconfident because of your past victory, what happens to you? Because when you become so overconfident, maybe because you've been winning, it makes you become complacent. So maybe you might not really prepare so well as you should prepare. And it's all emotional. You feel like, oh, mess me. So you might take certain things for granted. If you are so fearful, you overestimate things. You look at the things and you'll be seeing them more than they actually are like. And you might not take certain steps or actions as you have to take. If you get angry, you will limit your options. Because you react in ways that at the end of the day will cut certain relationships, will cut certain things that actually you should be connected to. And if you let love or feelings or your love for something lead you, it will blind you. You see where I'm coming from? So emotions are inevitable. They are even more powerful than the rational aspects of things. You know, our everyday life makes us think that we are so rational. And because we find ourselves in a routine, you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you bath, you go to work, you know that you pick your bus at this station at this time, you get to work at this time, you know exactly what you have to do at work. Patients will come, or maybe you have to work on metal, say at this time after this time. So because of a routine, we think we are rational beings. But as soon as something comes up, that shakes things a little, then you start getting emotional. And when you get emotional, that's when you realize that the rational aspect of your being is very limited. Because as soon as you get emotional, then you start acting in funny ways. You get so when will this thing happen? When is it coming? Then you lose control of your whole thing. You forget that. Let me just calm down. Okay, what will I do from there? What can I do? Are you getting where I'm coming from? So the routine way of doing things makes us start believing or thinking that we are so rational. But emotions are powerful. And emotions are inevitable. They are there. But whenever you start getting overconfident, you be aware of the consequences of overconfidence. Because I become overconfident, I will underestimate things, and I will think this, and I will not pay attention to certain things. And knowing that, and having that knowledge as a strategic warrior, you know that, hey, overconfidence will mess me up. Let me strive in the other direction. You understand where I'm coming from? Of what? Paying attention to things and not taking things for granted. When you start getting so fearful, you realize that fear will make you overestimate things. So then you will be aware that I'm overestimating. Well, that's what fear does. So I have to now try to see things as they are and let the fear go. When you start getting so emotionally involved in liking something or falling in love too much, you should not love is, like they always say, blind. To blind you. It will color your perception. Something is happening which is actually not right. And because of the love, you will not see it. You don't see that thing that is not right. The person that you love is actually doing something that is wrong or is having a negative influence on you. But you cannot see it. So whenever you find yourself in love with something or someone, you should realize that that's what love does. It makes you blind. So you have to strive in the other direction of trying to see things realistically for what they are as a strategic warrior. So don't let your actions be colored by emotions. Next thing, judge people by their actions, not by their words. It's very, very important. These are basic strategic ways of dealing with things. If you are judging people by their words, then you're in big trouble. But you're in big trouble because people will say anything that will make them feel good, that will make you feel good, promises, flattery, anything at all. They'll say things that they do not mean. They'll say things that, because people are also moody. You come and say, oh, I'll do this for you, but the next day you meet the person's mood has changed. Or the person's perception of something has changed. Maybe they said it out of excitement. They said it because they wanted to please you. They said it because someone was there, they wanted. So you'll be caught up in it and you regret. You see, so you look at the actions of people. How are these people actually like? What you look at their past. Is this person really honest? When he tells people that I'll do this for you, does he follow through with it? That's what you look at. Is he actually doing something that shows that he will do it? Third thing, depend on your own arms as a warrior. So if you that was what I'm trying to say, that if you rely on people too much, they will disappoint you again and again and again and again, because your dream is not their dream. What you are thinking then is what they are thinking. Do you understand where I'm coming from? So you should learn as much as possible to improve upon your repertoire of skills, your skill sets. You should learn how to do different things. We put so much faith into people that we call gurus or experts. But sometimes, experts are sometimes not even as good as we think they are. You get where I'm coming from? We overestimate them and underestimate the possibility that we can actually build our own skills and do things. So depend on your own. I'm not saying that everything should depend, otherwise you will spend so much energy. But as much as possible, build your skill set, learn how to do things. Not just your skills, but even things that you could have done or you could have found a way of doing it, and you want they'll disappoint you. Sometimes not because they are wicked, but they are human beings, and maybe the way you are feeling emotional, you think the thing is so necessary to do, they are not feeling the same way because they are not you. You see, so you should learn how to depend on your own arms. Otherwise, you'll be disappointed and frustrated throughout life continuously, again and again and again, and to wear you out. But be careful that you don't do everything on your own, but learn how to let other people help you too. Then the fourth one is value prudence over brutal force. Value prudence over brutal force. What I mean is that the Greek, they have a god that they call Athena, and they have a god that they call Ares. And according to them, both of the gods are gods of war. But Ares, A-R-E-S, is a god of war in terms of brutal warfare. It's all about fights. But Athena is a god of war, but her kind of war is a war of strategy. What would you do? How would you plan it? How should you stand? And because of that, the Greeks don't like Ares because they feel Ares will just lead you into war without thinking, and you just go in reacting. You just want to fight violently without using your mind. And Ares will lead you mostly into failure. That is one approach you have to life. It's not always about jumping to things without prudence. It's not always about just jumping and doing things. But you have to value prudence, cherish it, wisdom, over just reacting and, like we were saying earlier on, showing yourself. You just want to prove a point. You just want to do this. Be careful of it, the way you even react to people in relationships. Be careful of the way you react to situations. Are you doing it just to satisfy an emotion? Doing it just to prove a point? Doing it just to satisfy yourself, or just to get a satisfaction that you need? Or you are actually looking at the possible consequences of what you are doing now? And the fifth one is elevate yourself above the battlefield. Do you understand? Elevate yourself above the battlefield. What do I mean by that? Whatever venture you find yourself in, If you are just standing on a battlefield, you will not see the whole picture.
But let's say that two people are fighting a war. If you are standing in the midst of the army, you just see the immediate surrounding, what is happening here and now. So you see whom you are fighting now, but you don't see everything. So when you elevate yourself, I'm talking about you standing on the mountain top and looking down. And you see the whole picture. And when you see the whole picture, what happens is that you see, oh, this people they are weak here, they are confused here. This is what is happening here, this is what is happening there. If only we should do this and we move to this side. That should be your approach to doing things in life. Don't think about now and now and now, what I'm doing now and what can I gain now. But elevate yourself above it all and look, okay, I'm now on this side of life. I'm in school, I'm in secondary school, I'm completed university, all that. And you look at your life from the above, right from your childhood till now, the mistakes you've possibly made, what can you do to get there, what is here? That's where you have to now start searching for things. You want to reach at this particular position or in this, you ask questions concerning that part. You see what I'm talking about? So that you can connect everything. When you see the whole battlefield, you can make well-informed decisions and not just be reacting out of immediate circumstances and situations, but reacting out of understanding. So when I talk about strategy and tactics, like you saw, you see what is strategy, what is tactics? Are they not almost the same thing? What's so special about these two? You know, when I talk about strategy, I'm talking about, like I mentioned just now, looking at the whole picture, elevating yourself above this battlefield like every warrior, every great or good warrior would do, even before getting to the battlefield. And it gives you an advantage. Tactics, on the other hand, is responding to the immediate thing. Some of us think we are strategists when we are actually tacticians. You get where I'm coming from? So tactics is responding to the immediate situation, the now and immediate response to a situation. What can we do to solve this particular situation here now? What can we do to solve this situation? But strategy looks beyond that. And strategy looks so beyond that strategy always has options. Okay, what will it do? So as you are planning for this program, you know, okay, if this doesn't come, that's how we'll just arrange these things, we'll put this here. If this person disappoints, this is what we'll do. That's a strategist way of thinking. You have to look at the whole picture. A tactician will just look at what they are doing now and they be responding to things as they come. You get where we are coming from. So that's what makes strategy so important. Because it gives you options. If A doesn't work, I can move to B. If B doesn't work, I'll go to C. And it also opens doors for you on so many levels. As we move on, we understand better. So, like we were saying, the greatest battle of all is the battle yourself. Because no matter the amount of advantages that you have, no matter the amount of skills that you have, no matter what you have, if you yourself, it's a big problem. If you yourself, I'm talking about your fears, your tendency to respond to things emotionally, your laziness, you get where I'm coming from? They will limit you. That's why I always say that there are people who prophets have touched their head and they become bald with anointing or said all manner of great things, but they are not reaching it because of their own self. They've not learned how to handle themselves. Their self-directed warfare is poor. So you have to understand that you yourself, there are certain things about you that will prevent you from getting where you have to get to. You have certain weaknesses, certain attitudes about you. And that is where you have to direct your warfare to first, before you move to an organization or defensive or offensive or any other way. You get where I'm coming from? Okay, so I think we look at this one earlier on. So we are going to look at self-directed warfare. So the first one is you have to declare war on your enemies. That's the polarity strategy. What do I mean by polarity strategy? Polarity strategy. Some of us, or most of us, don't have any sense of polarity. We don't have anything that we don't like. Do you understand where I'm coming from? If you hate mediocrity, you understand mediocrity? It will put fire inside of you, such that you will fight anything that will make you mediocre. So that is your enemy. If you hate pettiness or smallness or you get where I'm coming from. It will make you, it will fuel you. That will be the fire inside of you that will make you fight against that thing. But if you don't really have any sense, if you don't have anything that is your polar opposite, even as a Christian, if you don't hate sin, you cannot live a holy life. The Bible keeps on telling us that again and again and again. You have to have this sense of hatred and deep enmity. That's why Jesus Christ said this thing. That until you what? You hate your what? Your father and your mother. Until they become your enemy. What it doesn't like they become your enemy as in like you don't like them. What it means is that you have to have a sense of polarity upon their thoughts. I don't know if you have to. There are certain things that you have to eschew about them, such that they cannot move you away from the path, your path in Christ. You get what I'm trying to say? And God says something in the book of Malachi chapter 1 that Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. And we now live in a society where when I mention that word hatred, it's an emotional word. But it was not an emotional word. It was a word of polarity. A word of, I chose this one and I reject it. It's a rejection. When those people in those times were talking about those words, we are living in a very emotional world now. They didn't mean it in a way like, I want to destroy it. Because whenever you hear someone talking about hate, you are thinking about destroy it. Like, I don't like it, I want it to get, no. What God meant by that was that Esau I rejected, or I pushed aside, and I chose this. That's what I'm talking about. So when you hear the enemy, and you hear enemy, it comes from the word inimicos. I think that's where the Spanish or Latin get that word amigo, something like that. It comes from the word inimicos. And inimicos means, it's a Latin word which means not a friend. That's what enemy is. It's not that, there's no emotions involved. Just not a friend. So I'm talking about not a friend. When I talk about declaring a war on your enemy. You see, so the enemy could be even a person who is not your friend because of a person's behavior or attitude that would make you not get where you have to get to. It could be an idea, a behavior. You have to declare war on those enemies. You get what I'm saying? So you have to identify your enemy. Look at David and Saul. There are certain ways that you can identify your enemies. One of them is the David and Saul strategy, where there was a situation where David identified that Saul wanted to kill him. And he told Jonathan. Jonathan said, oh, what are you talking about? It's not so. David said, let's test your father, you see what I'm talking about. So David beats the grass to startle the snakes. He said, okay, there's a meeting, I will not come. You see how your father reacts. And the concept behind that was that if, for instance, you are my friend, and you don't have anything against me, and you call me and I don't pick, or something are happening that you are seeing some kind of coldness or like negative attitude or something, there's a way you react towards it. Because you don't have any hard, you might say, oh, why is this guy behaving in this particular way? You might guess, or you might see the coldness as it, but you don't really take it so personal. But when you have something against someone, you're looking for a chance. And that's how Saul reacted. That little coldness from David, he took it very personal to his own ego because he already wanted to do something like unfair and like that. So sometimes you have to beat the grass to settle the snake in people. That's sometimes how you can identify your enemies. You can identify your enemies also by using the mouse and tongue strategy. He had one of his ministers who was the president of China, was one of their leaders of China in the past. One of their leaders who, one of the ministers, the minister has become so excessive praise. Hey, you dare, that kind of thing. And it was so saddening. Once you know that, no, this man is planning something. And I'm telling you, any person who does that is planning something. That's one thing most of the time we take for granted, but always pay attention to these kind of things. That's one of the ways you might, and it will shock you. Because why is the person doing that? I think we see it in Nigeria movies. Sometimes if the Jumas, they go and kill your mother-in-law, and you see what I'm talking about. And maybe you're not talking to the person. The person comes, oh, you say, why is it that this my daughter-in-law is all of a sudden so nice to me? You see where I'm coming from. So I think that example will make you understand where I'm coming from. I don't want to go so much into that. I will talk too much. Then, okay, sometimes you have to use tension and arguments to get people's real mind about you. Especially if you're the boss. They don't tell you the truth. You are political. Everybody, because a boss, as soon as boss comes now, then. But if you challenge people, even it happens in the classroom. If you don't challenge the teacher, you don't know anything. Because if the teacher comes in and maybe you say, this one, no, I think it's wrong. I read the other book. And the teacher now will start explaining details to you to prove himself. That's when you get things from people. Because people are always trying to be civil, like I mentioned in the beginning. That's one thing you have to always take note of. People are civil, they are political. The way you see people is just a mask that they are wearing. They just want to show you something, to be acceptable, to be liked, and all that. But as soon as you challenge people's concepts, you say, oh, you this, you that, or something, or you challenge their ideas, they also try to attack you. That's when they have to start telling the truth. Sincerity comes in when there's tension and argument. When you meet someone who is arguing, the person is not being sincere, that's the person is a dangerous one. It's a master strategist. Yeah. That person is a dangerous person you have to move away from because the person is a dangerous person. But when people get emotional and start talking, that's when you take it. So always use tension and argument moments as times to gauge people for whom they really are. Otherwise, you don't know them. Okay. Enemies are inevitable. Whether you like it or not, there will be enemies. You can be the most loving person in this world. You can love everyone. People will hate you just because you are too loving. Yeah. So the concept of enemy is not something that you can ignore or jump over. No. It's there and it's a reality. Pay attention to it. Conflicts are necessary. Children who grow up and they do not experience any conflicts when they were growing up, it affects them. They become too naive. They don't learn the ways of the world. You have to be assured, like Jesus Christ said. You have to, like Jesus Christ always complained about. He said, why is that the people of the light are so much? You see what I'm talking about? He said, people of the light, they see that the people in darkness they are smarter. That's why he mentioned his parable of the servant and the master. The servant who went to actually do something dubious. And he actually mentioned, he tried to compare. He said, don't be like that servant too. But look at what he did. Why don't you also do something like that so you can gain more friends in eternity? Help people, do things for people. You see that kind of thing in a positive way. Conflicts are necessary. Because conflicts build us. They make us see how people really are. But if you always try to avoid conflict, you risk poor social and lack of understanding. You become too naive. The inner enemy. Okay, so I can see that I prepared about 4 different things to talk about. I'm not even done with one. So let me just try to just clarify the point. Yes. So the inner enemy, like we talk about, the enemy that is you. Certain traits inside of you that are your enemy. It could be your fearfulness. It could be your lack of initiative. It could be your laziness. You have to declare war. If you don't declare war, it will not change. The more clearly you recognize who you do not want to be, then the clearer your sense of identity and purpose will be. That's the polarity strategy. You know that I don't want to be poor. If you really do not want to be poor, some of us will just say it, but we don't mean it. But if poverty is your enemy, my brother, you don't be sitting here doing what you are doing. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. But if poverty is your enemy, really, it's really your enemy. You do anything possible so that you don't be poor. That is what I'm talking about when I talk about polarity strategy. But if you don't declare war, you always say, oh, enemy, the enemy. You will remain where you are because enemies are good. You need enemies. That's why God intentionally gives us enemies. They humble you. You know, you have to always be in a competitive mood. Let's take it for example. You find yourself with someone, you're competing with someone. The person wants to is doing also well. Okay, let's take it in a class setting. You're a good student. But you have enemies in the class. Like I mentioned before, I describe enemy not as someone you hate, but not a friend. And not a friend, not in a general thing, but when it comes to being someone, the person will be first, second, third, this person is not my friend. Yeah. I don't understand what I'm talking, but somebody don't declare war because of that we are always somewhere. But if you get this person is not my friend, in terms of when it comes to who is first in the class, second, third, it will drive you. It will humble you because, hey, I'll try you. 92, Minyahi, 85. You see, Charlie, I'm not that good. You see, it will humble you. When you don't have enemies, it makes you complacent. Yeah. You need enemies, my brother. Go and look for enemies. I'm serious. I'm not saying that you're hating people. Go and look for enemies. I'm talking about the inner enemy in this case, where enemies inside of you, things that are about you are lazy. If you really hate laziness, or you think that hey, this laziness is worrying me, it becomes your enemy. Or you see that you don't take initiative, it becomes your enemy. You move the opposite. Whenever you find yourself, you start taking initiative when you know I have to take initiative. You start trying to do something, make things happen. That's what I mean when I talk about a polarity strategy of the inner enemy. So the more clearly you recognize who you do not want to be, then the clearer your sense of identity and purpose will be. I don't want to be poor. So now it becomes clear, I want to make money. I want to be rich. I don't want small things. I don't want to be mediocre. Oh, with the emphasis I'm saying, they are already 2 chairs. No. I want to make the thing extraordinary. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. With the emphasis on this one, simple something. It will kill you. You think Action Chapel and whatever, the big churches you see around, if mediocre. Most churches, because the reason why they're not getting where they have to get because of mediocrity. Oh, emphasis it begins to heavier. You don't look beyond a bigger picture. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about the inner enemy. And I'm talking about the outer enemy, where I'll be talking about getting along with other people is an important skill to have. But it comes to danger. By always taking the path of least resistance, the path of conciliation, you forget who you are and you sink into the center with everyone else. If I do this and I get to, well, they will not like me anymore. You see where I'm coming from? It's good to get along with people, but sometimes you have to stand up and say, no, I will not do this thing. No, I will not allow myself, because sometimes when you are now excelling, you are moving up, that's when your friends now start like, let me give you this, you want to be a Christian, you want to serve God very well. If you really want to please people, you want conciliation, you just want people to, you cannot stop drinking, you cannot stop doing the wrong things you are doing. That is the outer enemy. You have to have enemies if you really want to do something. In the business world, in your education world, for instance, you want to study, but your friends always want to play another thing. If you start to do, say, hey, why you shark? Because you want to be conciliation, you want them to. That's what I'm talking about the outer enemy. You need enemies. When it comes to that, they are not your friend. Otherwise, you will stick to the center, and you don't have space. That's what I'm talking about. So we are talking about just self-directed warfare. So we are living in a world of politics, a world of interaction and hostility. Everybody is doing things, but they are covering it up. They're envious of you, but they are pretending that everything is okay. And they are sabotaging you here and there. You've actually, they know that they should want to come and help to do something at this particular time. And so this person I cannot tell, because people don't like conflict. You see, you don't want the dirty things that comes out of conflict, the way like that dirty emotions and all that. So he doesn't want to do it, or he doesn't really want to help. He doesn't want you to excel. Or shut up late. I know about now, to delay you and sabotage you. That's the kind of world we live in. But everybody has to present a straight face. Oh, hey, Charlie, you watch your power. How is it going? If you do way power, when you see someone else says it starts unnecessary compliment, plenty, which is not sincere, suspend the person. Always. Not sometimes, always. The person doesn't have a good mind about you. It's just politics. Politics, when you hear, is basically about promoting self-interest. That's what politics means. So when you talk about politics, you're talking about promoting your self-interest. And when you're promoting self-interest, you use propaganda, you use all manner of things in order to get where you want to get to. Not caring about. Politics doesn't care about any person. So what you get, it's everywhere. There are some times that politics is necessary. You want your mother to buy something for you, but you know that if you have to go and tell your father so that, politics, you play it at home. When you tell your father and your father will support you when you create some conflict there, so your father will support you and to move one of them to buy it for you when you do it when we're children. To promote yourself, you don't really care about what happens to them when you see. So we live in a world of politics that people will try to, oh, Charlie, I think I'm a teacher, that's politics. So enemies are necessary. They motivate you to focus on your beliefs. They give you a standard to judge yourself by personally and socially. They give you a sense of realism and humility. You see yourself say you be a shark. Example of I know what trying to say, hey Charlie, I have to sit down. You are talking about it. But when you don't have those enemies, you become local champion, you think you're all that. You see what I'm talking about? So you need enemies. Go and look for some. If you want some. So that's what happened to Julius Caesar. When he had Pompey as his enemy, he was so strong. Because Pompey was strong. So Pompey was very strong. Very powerful. But as soon as he was able to defeat Pompey, he started going down. Because all the others were not there anymore. And I realized that schools that are found in regions or places where, no matter how good the school is, because when you don't have competitors, that's why Cape schools do well, because they have a lot of competitors. You have fancy people around, Western girls at this school. So you have to force, Augustine. So every time, but when you're a local champion, no matter how good you are, you cannot reach your full potential. Yeah. So you need enemies. Go look for some. Okay. Do not fight the last war. Okay, let me go to the last. When I talk about do not fight the last war, I'm talking about, let me just summarize it. I'm talking about what you've done before. That's worked for you. Repetition doesn't necessarily mean that it will help you. Let's look at the story of Miyamoto Musashi, who was a swordsman, a Japanese swordsman. He was one of the greatest Japanese swordsmen who ever lived. And he never fought the last war. Let me give you his story so you understand where I'm coming from. What I mean is this. Miyamoto had fought with a particular family. He had killed because those were the things that was happening. I'm talking about reality. He had killed the father and the brother. So the guy was angry. And what Miyamoto usually did was that when you invite him for a war, he doesn't come early. For a battle, he doesn't come early. He will come late and come and beat you. But that time, that particular war that was called by their brother, the guy who had killed the brother and the father, he went very early and went to hide in the bush. Because he went, his friends were saying, don't go, and I said, I'll go. And he went early. And when he went, what he heard was saying that they've come. He went early and they came. He went earlier and they came early and said, and they were planning what they would do. So you go and hide in the bush when the council will do him. He has already seen everything. So he just jumped out of the bush and said, oh, come and fight, that kind of thing. So he knew what they were going to do already. If he had come late that particular time by fighting the last war, what would happen? So he responded to the second because he thought ahead and said, this guy, this is what he will do. I beat his brother, I beat his father. He will also think that if he comes early, he's going to come. So you don't always fight the last war. The last war, whether you won or you lost, you shouldn't repeat that same thing. You have to respond to circumstances on the ground. Another time, Miyamoto met another guy who fought. And the guy's fighting style was that he fought with a chain. And the end of the chain is a ball. And plus that, he fought with a sword. So when he was winning all his battles, he just throws the ball at you. When I think you try to parry, you just give him the air. So Miyamoto knew what the guy was going to do. So when he came for that battle, he also came with two swords. One long one and one short. The guy said, hey, who fights with two swords? He had his plan. When he got there, he didn't even wait for start. He just grabbed towards the guy. The guy got confused. He said, when I threw my sword, when I threw my this thing, you just hit it on the guy and shoot me. Then I realized he was on the ground dead. You see, so Miyamoto always responded to what was happening. That's how we have to respond. You don't fight the last one because you won by using this particular strategy. You want to use that same strategy. No. Be like Miyamoto. The greatest generals, the most creative strategies stand out not because they have more knowledge, but because they are able, when necessary, to drop their preconceived notions and focus intensely on the present moment. That is how creativity is sparked. And on the present moment, this is how creativity is sparked and opportunities are seized. Knowledge and experience and theory have limitations. No matter the amount of thinking in advance can prepare you, no amount of thinking in advance can prepare you for the chaos of life, for the infinite possibilities of the moment. That's where friction comes in. You plan for something, but you get there and something different altogether. What would you do? You always have to think like a Miyamoto. You have to look at the greater picture. You have to be a strategist, like you mentioned, options. You should know when I get there, this doesn't happen, this is what I have to do. You see that kind of thing. So you can fix in or meander into things. Do not fight the last war. Whether you don't want it, when you win it, what do you do? Just give you too much confidence. When you lose too, it will break you down, make you fear. Hey, you start doubting. Hey, as I go, I might lose again. Oh, I wrote this exam the other time. What's if me try every fail? You see, that emotion would clear all that out. That's why I'm saying that emotions are dangerous. They limit us. So you always should be aware of the power of emotions. They are more powerful than rationality. So whether you won or you lost, it's going to influence you negatively. Don't fight the last war. Fight the present war. Okay, it's like a river. When a river is moving, it just moves with speed. But as soon as the river is blocked, it becomes stagnant. And when it's moving with speed, at every moment it's fresh. That's the kind of thinking you have to think. You should always be mobile. Let your thoughts be mobile. Let it flow. Think about the situation at hand, there and then. Be always fresh. Drop preconceived notions. You get where I'm coming from? And look at the moment, what is happening now. Respond to circumstances. No matter the amount of knowledge you have, it will not help if you cannot respond to circumstances. So you have to first of all re-examine all your cherished beliefs and principles. Some of them will not help you. Some of them you have to modify them. Some of them you have to look at the situation you find yourself in. It might not be the one that applies. You have to erase the memory of the last war. Forget about that. Maybe you did this and it worked very well. Forget about the last war. It doesn't matter now in the present. The present was a different war. Your last war doesn't qualify you to win the present. It's a new war. So no matter how much the previous one it worked so well, when it comes to a new one, take it as if, forget about it. Take it as if you've not won before. This is a fresh project. Be in the present. Keep the mind moving like a river. Absorb the spirit of the times. What I mean is that you have to be updated. You should not have to hold on to certain preconceived notions every time. You have to look at the moment, the trends. You see what I'm talking about? If you are using this, now you're using projector. You're not using chalkboard anymore. You're using marker boards and projectors. You have to try to update yourself every time, not just in technology, but in ideologies. We are moving on. You see, I want us to look at the last one, and we'll finish. I'm skipping the third one. It's 4 things I wanted to talk about. Create a sense, I think this is the one I already do, I shall put it first. Create a sense of urgency and desperation, the death ground strategy. Death ground, you don't know what death ground is. In the past, when armies were going for wars, they realized that when they put their armies or their soldiers in a position where they cannot run, they fight. For instance, you are going to fight a war, and your general puts in a place where there's a mountain behind you, or a river. If you don't fight, where are you going? And you also that whenever he did that, the people fought with triple it because but whenever we have an option, we become lax. For instance, my father has a house. There are so many rooms there. Why would I? No matter how much, you will not be motivated to do extra. That's the death ground. So always try to put yourself in the death ground. That this thing, if I don't do it, you have to even cancel it. You can even go and tell the father, don't give me this out. When you cancel that particular option out, you know that if you don't force, it will not be well for you. I don't think I'm trying to say. That is the death ground. You have to put yourself in the death ground that you either win or you lose. If you don't win, you've lost. And you see how far you go. It's just like when you're preparing for a project or before exam, stay always steady. Death ground. During the thing we play, time. We have time. We have thinking about. And when it's about 1 week, you say, death ground, if that ground will fail. And you start dig. You get what I'm trying to say? That's the death ground. You don't have to wait for exam time you're approaching before. Create that death ground for yourself. Create it for yourself in life. We see life as if we have time. It's like when you're a young one. That time is a disadvantage for us. Because just like a way, maybe you having a relative who is rich or who can help with an opportunity, like the Asante usually say, "Wofa woho," it makes you lax. So you'll be just moving around. Or that time, in front of you, oh, I'm a young man, just 25 years. I have time. I will time. You see, cancel that thing out and create a dead ground for yourself. Set a target that if I'm by 35 years, I've not reached, I've failed. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. When you give yourself, put yourself in that dead ground position, it moves you to kill yourself. That's a no return tactic. Where there was a man called Hernan Cortez, he was given a project, a particular project to go to South America to go and conquer a particular land there. When Hernan got there, he realized that his soldiers were not so, they had to conquer, but they were complacent. Because they had their ships there and they thought that, oh, if anything at all, we can go back home. And now going to burn all the ships. You see where I'm coming from? So when they burned the ships, they saw that we have to fight so that we will win. If we don't win, we cannot be able to create new ships and go back home. Come and see them. Within 4 years, they've done whatever they have to do. Sometimes you have to burn some ships in your life. I'm telling you the truth. And then that are making us comfortable too much. You feel like, oh, I have time. Oh, this thing is there, I have my own, this thing. Oh, everything in my home is okay. Oh, I have some. When you have a clutch to hold on, it limits you. When you burn those clutches and you just leave them out, you see how much you can accomplish. Just like you win a project, you waste time, except in 2 days. You see how fast you do it and how much you do. But that dead ground has to be there every time. Otherwise, it limits you are wasting time. Because you don't apply that dead ground strategy. Because you think you have what you never involve yourself deeply enough in one thing to do it thoroughly. You never quite get what you want because you don't involve deep. But when you have that no return tactic, or you have that do or die tactic in your mind, and you apply it to yourself, you cannot miss. All these stories, I cannot tell them. All these stories, interesting ones. So I'm just saying that to do this, you have to apply certain things on you. 1, stake everything on a single throw. 2, act before you are ready. 3, enter new waters. 4, make it you against the world. And 5, keep yourself restless and unsatisfied. What made Napoleon Bonaparte win most of his wars was that he was always restless. Be restless and unsatisfied every time. Don't have any point in your life. I'm not saying you shouldn't rest. You should create rest time for yourself. But don't have any point in your life where you don't have anything to do. You always have a project. Do something, no. One day God will lash us. Because all of us are wasting the world power. He will lash us. I'm talking about physical lashes. You get to heaven and because we are wasting life. Always have something that you are doing. Okay, by the end of this year, I cannot end it. You know, that's the dead ground. I cannot end this year without doing a project. I get where I'm coming from. Or I cannot finish this term without, you see, put a particular aim and make it like a life or death. Like, if I don't do this, I'm a failure. If I don't do this, then I've missed, like, put it like, I have to get this just to prove a sense of honor. I have to do this. And when you put that in front of you and put that as you get there because you want to do it and you do anything to get there. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about death ground. That's what I'm talking about. We are wasting so much time. So we have to create a psychological death ground. A psychological kind of death ground. That's what I'm talking about. When I talk about that's what I'm talking about. Take everything on a single throw. Act before you are ready. Oh, okay. Let me go to the other one. That one is better. Everything on a single throw. Act before you are ready. Lyndon Johnson. Who knows Lyndon Johnson? He was a U.S. president, but before he started, he was a congressman. And the way he won the congressman was that he was there. He was in one of the offices. He was in politics. He wasn't that much higher. He was now pursuing, and he got somewhere. All of a sudden, the leader or the congressman for a city died. And he realized that I want to be an MP for my city in the next 10 years. If I don't go and stand for this position now, I will not get there because when somebody comes there, it's going to be a political time. This is my chance. And this guy, he wasn't so much popular and all that, but he stood. And because he knew that he had to win or die, he was going to house fight. He went to everybody. By the time they finished the election, he was sick. But he won. Because, he put that thing in his mind that everything was on a single throw. Either I win or lose. You see where I'm coming from? That's what I'm talking about when I talk about death ground. Very, very important. That's how people make it in life, make it. Death ground. You don't always have to wait before you act, like Julius Caesar. You have to cross the Rubicon. Who has heard of crossing the Rubicon before? It's a program we usually say. You have to cross the Rubicon, cross the Rubicon. You've not heard of it before. Really? That means you have to take an action that is a big risk you are taking, but if you don't do it, you might lose everything. Julius Caesar was the one who came from your Caesar's story. He was the one who actually crossed the Rubicon. As in, he was coming with his army towards Rome, and he was warned by the Romans that because he was now becoming very powerful, they wanted him to come in, you will see, that kind of thing. And after then, he was a very powerful one. By the time he wasn't all of them were with him. It was a small army for 5,000. But he crossed the Rubicon. And when he crossed, they didn't expect him to cross. So he was able to surprise them. And he was able to defeat all those he had to defeat. It was a dangerous step he took. So there are certain times in our life that we have to cross the Rubicon. You get what I'm saying? Maybe you don't always have to wait till everything is ready. When you have enough and you prepare, the most important aspect is the preparation stage. When you are prepared, really, then you can do it. Prepare yourself, pray over it, do it. You don't have to wait for everything to join together and everything is ready before. That's the crossing the Rubicon that I'm talking about here. Make it you against the world. I'll talk about that one last thing we just close. I'm talking about the story of Tetteh, who was a baseball player. And what he did was that he realized that he wasn't having motivation. He was doing well, but he wanted to beat world record. So what he did was that he made a team against the journalists. When they give him microphone, he just installed them. These people, everything, they're taking trash about footballers. That kind of thing. It wasn't that. They also were trying to destroy him. So, Ted Williams got 2-0. After he played this game, he wasn't able to get this amount of points. It encouraged him to say, I'll prove feasible that I'll make it. So because he was just making big, like he was leaping because he was him against the journalists. And you guys what I'm trying to say. You can apply this in other areas of your life. Journalists were now against it. So every writing they write against it was against. Like, oh, Ted Williams, something negative will come in that he is not as good as he thinks he is and all that. So you also put to them to that they couldn't talk anymore. You have to make it you against something. If you are not for me, then you're against me. These are principles that are even biblical. That's it. Because Jesus Christ knew that that's how human beings function. So if you're not for me, you're against me. It's you against something. If you're not against something, that's why Christians are just, we are not doing anything. Because you don't have a sense of purpose of death ground or against something. If Satan is really your enemy and you are against him, you don't do what you are doing here. That's why I say if you're not for me, you are trying to resist part-time. That's why he said God was very particular about those things. Denial and other things. Like, you have to deny yourself. You have to be into it too. It's not a joke. If you are not for me, you are against me. It's two things. But if you are really for me, you immerse yourself into it. Thank you. My time is up. There's so much I wanted to talk about, but